I had a script for this, but I think I'm going to try to do this off the top of my head. Just talk through it as I think about it. So I'm looking at this picture that you are seeing of nested circles. The circles are, from the outside going in, cosmos, nature, society, family, and at the very center there's a little snowflake that is supposed to represent you, the individual. Each of these circles is governed by a principle. The principle of the cosmos is entropy, or you could say causality. You start out with potential energy, which I just call energy, and it flows toward increasing entropy. Now, maybe to some extent this is an illusion or it's a perspective and not the ultimate reality, but at least as far as we understand physics, that's more or less how things happen. This principle is part of the theory of thermodynamics, but you can see it on the Earth. You can see it in yourself. You consume order from the environment, and you excrete disorder. So if you think about all of the things you consume, you drink fresh, clean water, and your urine is this smelly, dirty stuff. You eat food in all kinds of highly ordered forms. As you consume this, your body breaks it down, and what comes out the other end is much less ordered. So everything that matters to us, our bodies, our societies, our families, they can all be understood in terms of energy turning into entropy. So the cosmos is ruled by entropy. Nature is ruled by competition. Nature is the biosphere. It's the circle of life. And in this circle, there is a special kind of emergent order called life. Life forms are entropy machines. They consume order and they excrete disorder. And the biosphere is an open thermodynamic system. Energy flows into it from the sun and radiates out into space. There's also some energy being generated inside the Earth by nuclear fission. So these two things provide energy inputs to the biosphere. And this allows life to exist. It's the right temperature. As I said, each individual is an entropy machine, an open thermodynamic system that consumes energy and excretes entropy. This new kind of order arose by the process of evolution, and evolution is competitive. Organisms produce many offspring, and most of them die. And that's what generates the diversity of life on the planet. And that's also what makes ecosystems fit together, because the animals that don't fit are eliminated by selection. So, as individuals, life forms are both violent and selfish. And these are intrinsic properties of life. Life is intrinsically violent and selfish. There's no way to get around that, because life forms consume order and excrete chaos. They are intrinsically destructive, and they are created by the process of evolution to be good at reproducing. So from those two things comes their competitive nature. I was going to say something else. What was it? Well, maybe I'll come back to it. All right, the next circle is society. The principle of society is cooperation. Society is a work exchange system. It is also an entropy machine. Society is a kind of emergent order. It is an open thermodynamic system. It extracts energy from its environment and it excretes entropy. So in other words, it is a kind of order that consumes order and produces chaos in its environment. Just like you. Just like me. But unlike us, societies don't really reproduce. So they're not really the same as life. They're something that we create. They're something created by biology. because there are opportunities to be more successful as a life form by cooperating with other life forms. And this has led to the evolution of social behavior. And humans, of course, I would say have the most advanced kind of social behavior. Very complex social behavior, and it keeps increasing in complexity and scale. So if you go back 10,000 years, humans lived in little tiny groups of maybe 20 to 100 individuals. These days, our societies contain millions, hundreds of millions, even over 1 billion individuals, and they are linked together by various arrangements into something that is sort of global society, at least a global social network. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to say about nature. In the cosmos, there is truth. There is reality. There is causality. Things happen for reasons. But there is no value. Value emerges in nature, and it emerges because of reproduction, because of the reproductive cycle. Evolution creates forms that have functions. You cannot reduce the form of your hand or of your cerebral cortex to the sequence of events that led to its existence. But you can explain it, to some extent, in terms of what it does, what it is for, what its function is within your body. And your body, of course, is a reproducing machine. It's an entropy machine, but it's an entropy machine that was selected by evolution to reproduce. And all values come from the cycle of reproduction. They all lead back to that root value. That's how they emerged in the universe. So outside the circle of nature, there are no values. There's nothing good or bad in any sense. Inside nature, there are goods and bads, but they are selfish to the individual. They are good for this individual or bad for this individual. In society, morality emerges. Things are not merely good or bad to individuals. They are considered to be good or bad by the society as a whole. Society imposes standards of behavior on individuals, and this creates cooperation. So, most morality is simply what is pro-social, what promotes the social order. The bubble of nature is created by the flow of energy through the biosphere and the temperature of the earth. The bubble of society is created by individuals to serve their own interests. But to make it work, order must be imposed on individuals. Their freedom must be constrained. And the basic reason for this is the prisoner's dilemma, which can also be thought of as the tragedy of the commons. If you're not familiar with those concepts, then you should definitely look them up. And in fact, on my blog, I have a blog post where I explain those two concepts, but you can also look at it on Wikipedia. So the social order, to some extent, requires coercion to create and maintain. And it also requires competition with other societies. Why is that? Well, because it exists inside nature. Just as nature must obey the rules of the cosmos, society must obey the rules of nature. It has to extract energy from its environment, and it exports entropy. So, societies often appear to be rather rapacious when you observe them from an outside perspective. People look at society and how it chomps up rainforests and pollutes the air and does all these things and covers up prairies with shopping malls. And this, of course, can be critiqued. I'm not saying this can't be critiqued. But to some extent, that is necessary. It's consuming order and it's emitting chaos. To survive within nature, societies must be violent to other societies or to the natural world. They must consume. Now, you might think in nature plants are not violent, right? Because they get their energy from the sun. Well, that's true, but to get that energy, they have to compete with other plants. If you look at a forest, what you see is that the trees are all trying to grow tall. They're trying to shade each other out. They're actually trying to kill each other. A peaceful forest is really a struggle for existence between plants. They're struggling for the water and soil nutrients and for the sunlight. Everywhere in nature, the rule is competition. The only exceptions are the ones that are created within a smaller circle. The next circle is family. The family is created by cooperation between males and females. With humans, we don't really have the option to exist outside societies. So the family is typically embedded in a society and is usually also based on male-female cooperation. The principle of the family is love. Love is the unconditional transfer of energy to children. The family creates an environment of love that encompasses the child. The child exists within this loving environment where her needs are met unconditionally. And she is special. She's a special snowflake. I suppose there's an even more special environment, which is the womb, where there really is almost no distinction between you and the world that you interact with. In a sense, before you are born, you are the universe, and then as you grow up, you encounter increasingly hostile environments. Each of these environments depends on importing energy from the outer environment and exporting entropy to it. The family might export entropy to society, or it might export entropy to nature or to the cosmos, but one way or the other, energy goes in, entropy goes out. From the perspective of the individual, these environments are increasingly nice as you go from the outside in. So let's take these in the order that you encounter them. In your own body, there is no conflict between cells because they all have the same reproductive purpose, so they all act for the good of the body in a reproductive sense. So your body is coherent and nice to itself, unless you get cancer. And the womb is an extension of your body, really. You don't encounter much that isn't there specifically for you. So you enter the world from an environment that was all about you. Almost all of it was you. And then you encounter other people. You already have some sense of your mother because you can hear her voice in the womb. But when you are born, you see her face for the first time. You probably see your father's face and other people's faces. And you start forming bonds with these people, especially with your mother and father. As a child, you are immersed in this very nice environment where everything is done for you. Everything is given to you. You are a net recipient of energy. And in a sense, you are the purpose for that environment. So, of course, you get the sense that you are a special snowflake. And of course, in that environment, you are. To your parents, you are. You have intrinsic value. You are worthy of being supported, of being cared for, simply because you exist, not for any other reason. As you grow up, though, you encounter the environment of society, outside of the family. You interact with people who don't love you, who don't care about you, to whom you don't have intrinsic value, but who might be willing to cooperate with you. So the social environment is less nice than the family environment. It's less about you, and it's less nice to you. To get something in society, you have to give something back. Generally speaking, you have to be productive, to consume. To get energy from society, you have to do labor for others, or in cooperation with others. But the people that you interact with in society are prohibited from being violent toward you. So, in the family you are loved. In society, you are relatively safe. You are not a target. You are not prey. There is some competition within society, and there is some potential for violence, but it is reduced. If you go beyond the circle of society, let's say you take a a backpack with a week of supplies, a sleeping bag, and you go off in the wilderness by yourself, completely by yourself. Don't even go on trails, just go out in the wilderness of Alaska or British Columbia or somewhere that still has a significant amount of wilderness. That environment is much harsher. It is not about you. It was not really shaped with you in mind. The social environment is shaped to suit human needs. It is something we created. Nature is more or less indifferent to us, and there are many things in nature that want to consume you or consume some of your energy. Even mosquitoes, right? They want to suck your blood. A bear might want to eat you for dinner. And if you stayed out there long enough, you would have to participate in this competition for survival. You would have to kill other living beings and eat their bodies to survive. In society, you might not have to do that. You might just go to work, sit in an office, type on a computer, and then go to the grocery store and exchange money for groceries. But in nature, you have to get your hands bloody because nature is selfish and violent, and you are on the front lines. So nature is much harsher than society because there is no morality, there are no rights or obligations, there are no laws preventing other living beings from attacking you. But even the harshest environment on the Earth's surface is still far more hospitable to human life than almost everywhere else in the universe. So the cosmos is really a void with a very small number of extremely hot stars, a little bit of gas and dust, a few planets kind of wandering around. It's a very, very harsh environment. The cosmos is not friendly to life. We live in a very exceptional place. Most of the cosmos is too hot or too cold. You're either in the middle of a star, or, much more likely, you're just in empty space with almost nothing going on except maybe a little tiny bit of dust drifting through and just flickering of quantum wave functions in the void. If you believe in that, I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical of it myself. So we encounter these environments from the nicest to the most extreme as we expand our consciousness. You encounter these different environments as you grow up and expand your awareness and will, as you expand your awareness of reality and the scope of your action. You encounter these other environments that are increasingly harsh. And this can be the source of a lot of confusion and a lot of discontent. When children are expelled from the family circle, when they reach a certain age, and also, of course, we have extended the family circle with school. So school is it's like a proxy for the family. So when children go from this environment where they have intrinsic value, the environment is about them, right? It's there to meet their needs. When they go from that environment into the environment of society, where you have to produce in order to consume, a lot of people recoil. They think there's a problem with that because it doesn't work the same way as the environments that they have adapted to. By living in an environment, you absorb the rules of the environment. You understand the rules of the game in that context. You could call these moral intuitions. They are the rules for how you interact with that environment and get what you want. If you have developed your moral intuitions within the circle of family and the extended circle of school, then you believe that people should be nice to you. They should give you what you need, and they should help you to self-actualize, to fully develop yourself as a human being. Your intuition is that the world is there for you and should be there for you. And that's one reason why a lot of people reject society. That's why, for example, SJWs reject society. They reject things like capitalism because it's based on selfish cooperation. It's based on selfishness. And from being inside the circle of family, where the principle is love, or the unconditional transfer of energy, selfishness seems bad. It's immoral. Because you have learned that you deserve free energy. You have acquired that moral intuition because you lived in that environment. So you get used to getting stuff for free because you are a special snowflake. And then you go out into the broader world of society, and you're no longer a special snowflake. So that's why many young people reject not only capitalism, but also male-female relationships in favor of utopian ideals that can never be realized because they assume unselfishness. Nature is violent and selfish. Society is selfish. The family is altruistic, at least in terms of energy and from the child's perspective. So, when a person like that encounters male-female relationships which are based on cooperation, they might see those relationships as evil because they are selfish. Or they might see the selfish aspects of those relationships as something that needs to be overcome, as something that needs to be fixed, right? It is morally incorrect. It needs to be fixed. People should love me because I'm a special snowflake, not for my sexuality, not for my body. People should support me not because I do work for them, but just because I am a special snowflake. You get those intuitions from being inside the family and the school system, which is an extension of the family. Then you go into society, and those illusions are shattered. Now, very few people adapt their minds to the circles beyond society, because we are so immersed in a social environment that we are barely aware of these other circles. And that's why a lot of people have delusions about nature and about the cosmos. Comforting delusions. People like comforting delusions. For example, that's why anarchists don't understand that you have to use coercion to create society. You have to enforce nonviolence using violence. And why is that? Because society exists within the circle of nature. And society has to play by the rules of nature. It can create its own internal rules, but those internal rules and that internal environment depend on the rules of nature. Society can't override those rules. It can only create a local environment where those rules are temporarily suspended. And it can only do that using violence, right? Violence against the natural world to take away resources from other animals, other species, other life forms, and violence against other societies to seize land and resources and to defend what you have conquered. So every society depends on violence, depends on war, and must be destructive of other kinds of order in its environment. All of these people feel discontent because they can't adapt themselves to the rules of the environment. They can't adapt themselves to the rules of this larger environment. They recoil against it because it is not as nice as the environment that they are adapted to and that their moral intuitions were formed in. Now, it is possible to adapt your mind to the environments of nature and the cosmos, but of course it requires thought, and that's something most people don't do very much of. With nature, you can go out in nature, and I spent a lot of time by myself in nature, because I wanted to experience it directly, without any social mediation, without any effect of society. I would go on very long wilderness trips, alone, and experience it. So you can experientially adapt to nature, and then you develop an aesthetic appreciation of it. Your intuitions are really aesthetic and not moral. The attitude that you have toward nature when you adapt to it is that it is beautiful. You see the beauty of nature. And the same thing is true of the cosmos. You can see the beauty of the cosmos. The best way to adapt your mind to the cosmos is to spend some time looking at the stars. Go outside, find a place, well, ideally, go to the top of a mountain alone, so you're in nature and the cosmos. Removed from society, removed from all the flashing lights, all the distractions. And on that mountaintop, stare up at the stars and contemplate what they are and where you are in that system. So to recap these circles, each one depends on the principle of the outer environment. The family depends on the selfish cooperation of the parents to create a loving environment for the child. Society depends on the violence of the state to secure land and resources, and state coercion to impose nonviolence within society. Nature depends on the entropic flow of energy from the sun to the earth and the radiation of heat from the earth into space.